So welcome to 10 with Tim, talking about investing in your whole team or your whole organization to essentially understand where both are at and then plan how you're going to lift the performance of either or both. And if it's the organization that you're focused on, then naturally all of the teams within it are going to be part of the solution. So this is part of a series where we've been questioning how do we decide who to invest in right now when pressure's immense, resources are scarce, time has disappeared, it's just Zoom meetings back to back to back with no downtime in between, and quite probably you're in a situation where budgets are being compressed, even if the business is essential or outperforming the market because of a product or service offer that you have realized the opportunity of through COVID. Even with businesses who've seen 35% growth, budgets for development have been cut. At least that's what we're seeing. So, who do you invest in? And are you a leader who's leading a team or a leader who's leading an organization or influencing how an organization invests in its development? So essentially the contention that I'm going to make is that you should start where we start when it comes to this kind of investment, which is understanding contextually and objectively understanding where your team and or whole organization is currently sitting from a performance perspective, examining that, looking at where you can control and influence the performance uplift, or if some of the areas are outside of your control, and then really focusing in on those that you can control and prioritizing those, and then building a journey, map, roadmap, whatever you'd like to call it, in order to work on pushing that performance the direction that you want it to go, which I would anticipate is up. So essentially what I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail than I did in the time with Tim that introduced this topic is tools that you can use to interpret and understand how these things work. And we use 3 of them. And these are tools that we have selected for a number of reasons, but primarily because they all focus on understanding and focusing on the drivers of performance, of which, I'm going to make this very, very clear, our opinion, engagement is not one. That you can have a highly engaged team that are not high performing. And we certainly have seen this objectively time and time again. Engagement scores go up, commercial performance goes down. Why is that? Well, very, very quickly, engagement asks a set of questions that fundamentally do not relate to is your team high performing, is your organization high performing. Whether or not people are happy at work can be correlated to productivity and performance, but it's not causal. You can actually be quite unhappy and be very productive in the short term. You can certainly be satisfied but not happy in the medium term, but still be very productive and high performing. Happiness, yes, sustains performance over an extended period of time, but you could be happy and walk out the door the next day and never come back. So engagement we don't think is a useful measure. We look at values, purpose alignment, objectivity around goals, roles, processes. Do you have the things you need to do your job, which are transactional areas, and transformational areas, such as connection, adaptability, and resilience. Do you have what sustains performance over time? And do you know how it works and how to get better at it? And then we use different data sets to chart the risk of that so that you can actually feed your cultural performance measurements into a dashboard that tells you what your fiscal exposure culturally is. You might have retention rates skyrocketing, you might have the cost to replace people at a manageable point. But when you compound all of these areas across the board and you look at a dashboard, very quickly, even organizations of medium scale, all of these risk factors can compound into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So, what are the tools? Why do we use them? How do we use them? And how could you benefit from them? So I'm going to look at the team and I'm going to look at 2 tools for the organization. And there are many others out there, and we've certainly seen others, looked at others that we like, we think are good and could be beneficial, but we like these 3, and I'll explain why. So at the team level, we use a tool called PCS, which comes out of the UK, and we work directly with the owners, directors, and authors of that tool. And one of our team, Becky Clark in WA, is the only master practitioner outside of the United Kingdom for this tool. So PCS essentially looks at a team with a defined leader. So essentially, if you ask a group of people who's the leader here, everybody should point to the same individual. That's how we're defining a team for the use of PCS. Then that team and the leader complete a survey which informs how they believe they are currently benefiting from or could improve their goals, roles, processes, adaptability, resilience and connection. All of that compiles into an aggregate score which can be measured and compared across teams and across time intervals. So you can chart progress or you can compare capability. And then you literally have a traffic light system and you can say these are the areas where you're high performing, and hopefully you have some. These are the areas where you're good and we'll look to get performance uplift, but where we're going to prioritize right now is the underperforming or the low performing areas. And especially when those low performing areas are directly related to the leader, those are levers that you can pull on to activate high performance very, very quickly. Simple things like, does the team gather frequently and regularly to discuss their performance? Does the leader quickly tackle conflict? Do the team feel safe psychologically and physically? These are things ultimately all within the domain and control of the leader, and if they're in the low category, very quickly you can get a team uplift by changing the behaviours of the leader, which often happens with the same leader very, very quickly, just by realising, okay, I've dropped the ball there, but I can get that better far quicker, very quickly. So we really like PCS, we've used it a lot, it's a great tool. For organisations, we have a tool called PQ Factor, which is for organisations that are in the sort of SME category, up to about 300 employees. And that is a diagnostic that is designed to be used quickly, frequently, and give you a very sort of live feedback metric about the pulse of your organisation culturally and where you can focus performance investment.
Get that.
Sorry, Siri, not talking to you. I actually don't know how to turn that off on my watch. If you do, please tell me. So PQ Factor, small organisations who may not have a lot of data, may not have a lot of collateral about how they're performing culturally. And this essentially works off a mobile phone survey, takes literally 20 seconds to complete. That goes out weekly, fortnightly, monthly. And over the course of 6 months, you get a review across 64 questions that essentially gives you a sense for how the organisation is performing across a wide chart of categories, which we can go into detail on another day. But essentially, very, very quickly, across the whole breadth of your organisation, you get a sense for what's driving performance, where is high performing activity occurring, and where is low performing activity happening. And then you can chart and intervene accordingly. And then the really sort of big one is culture risk analysis. This comes out of Brisbane, and again, with both PQ Factor and CRA, we work directly with the authors of these tools. And for CRA, it is a complex dashboard which looks at values, systems and operations, mental health, physical health, how you believe the vision of the business is being fulfilled by your individual team's contribution, so the link to strategy. All of these elements are sampled, surveyed, and then feed into an overall risk diagnosis, which tells you your culture right now is costing you 0, and therefore it's adding to your bottom line, or it's costing you something, in which case there's a risk there that you can manage and you can reduce the cost of. And that cost may run to hundreds of thousands of dollars, may run to millions of dollars, depending on the size of your organisation and the health of your culture. All three of these tools give you information that you can then decide where you can invest any more time, effort and resources. If any of that sounds like something that your team or organisation would benefit from, maybe time to get in touch. Look forward to hearing from you if so. If not, I'll see you again soon, and thank you for your time and attention. If you've enjoyed any of the ideas I've shared today, you can find more of the Time with Tim and 10 with Tim at 4iLeadership.com.